Good morning, everyone. We've reached Wednesday. We're nearly at the weekend. We're getting there gradually. The international break is over, guys. Can I get a big smile from each of you just to celebrate that fact? Celtic are very nearly back, and everything is going to be right in the world again. Everything's right because we're back as a trio. It's felt like a while since this has been the case, but how's things?
Things are good. Yeah, happy to have a day off yesterday, but equally happy to be back speaking about Celtic with you guys. And it's the end of another international break, and thankfully the last international break until March. We were speaking off air about what will what will entail for Celtic until the next international break. If Celtic were to get to the last 16, those ties would have already been played by the time the next international break comes around. So that shows you just how long football will have between now and the next break for internationals. It's been a good international break for a lot of the Celtic players, maybe some not so good, but in terms of Scotland, it's been a really positive one. Also positive for Alistair Johnston. I've seen Palmer had a good first leg. I know he got taken off at half time last night. I checked that. But yeah, it's been quite a positive break, and now the real stuff is back, and I'm quite happy about that, to be honest.
Tony?
I love how we refer to it as the real stuff. It's just the way you feel, isn't it? The kind of club versus international debate. But yeah, you can't beat your fix of club football. You miss it dreadfully when the international break rolls along. And we are coming up to that intense period. We spoke about it yesterday, the ultra marathon, the 18 games, 67 days, but you said there'd be even more games. Could be like some 29 and 100 and odd days or something. Is that right? Yeah.
18 days, I think, yeah.
So, I mean, it's a really intense period, but, as the three of us have said, you just don't want it any other way, do you? It's like, bring it on. You get cup finals, massive league games, massive Champions League games. It's where you want to be. It's the stage you want to be playing at, and you just can't wait. And starting with an absolute rip snorter of a game on Saturday night at Tynecastle, which is just going to be brilliant. There is something about Tynecastle that's wonderful, and the atmosphere's always electric there. So I can't wait for that.
I'm genuinely really excited for Saturday night. I think it's going to be a cracker. As you say, Tynecastle, you always love going there. Lunchtime kickoffs are fine, but your night Saturday game, the atmosphere is going to be fabulous. I mean, the one complaint for me is that we're not going to have more fans there. I think if you had that full stand, as in my opinion should be the case, you'd be even more looking forward to watching it on TV and having this spectacle. But I think it's still going to be a crack. And what an opportunity for the team to get right back into it and get a big victory. But I think it's going to be a challenge as well. And busy period coming up. If you needed to know how many matches we've got between now and the next international break, Celtic can book their place in the Scottish Cup semi-final before the next international break, which seems a long way off. But yeah, 30-odd games to look forward to, and we'll be there every step of the way. Yeah, I noticed. Are you saying Palmer came off at half time? Ryan, is that the chat?
Yeah, I did check the score at half time. I didn't check the score at full time. They were absolutely hammered 4-0 by Mexico. I checked there when you were speaking. What is this about players coming off either just before half time or after half time? Whether it's they're taken off or sent off, Celtic players in and the team goes. It completely falls apart. It happened with Scales. Understand that happened, and then it's 10 men. He gave away a penalty, and England ran over the top of the Republic of Ireland. But Palmer came off at half time, and they were still 1-0 up in terms of or 2-1 up rather on aggregate, and they completely fell apart. Now that's to be expected almost because Mexico are a really good side, especially at home. You'd expect a team like Mexico to really cause problems with the international talent that they've got at their disposal. But a disappointing night for Palmer, and a shame for him, especially because of the good first leg that he had.
Just some interesting quotes from the Honduras boss, Reynaldo Rueda, who I'm sure you'll both be familiar with. He's kind of spoken a bit about the altitude, not attitude, to do with Lewis Palmer. That's quite a key point there. But just speaking about the rhythm as well that he had in the first game, obviously played really well, but maybe reading between the lines a little bit critical of Palmer for his performance. And clearly, if you're saying he came off at half time, Ryan, not a great day for Palmer or for Honduras losing that lead. To concern you all a bit, Alistair Johnson came off as a sub. Very concerned when I looked at that earlier. No injury though. No injury. Did I get you? Did I get either of you there? No.
You're all right.
Because I knew that they scored just a couple of minutes before he came off.
Okay.
I watched the goal last night. Was kind of keeping up to date with a lot of the players last night. I know that it was a bit late on, but I was seeing how Canada were doing, seeing how Honduras were doing just at the side, and it seemed that one side was doing a lot better than the other. Canada are really doing well at the moment. Over the past few years, I think even the fact that they've got Jesse Marsh as a manager shows that they're really taking their international football seriously. I think Johnson got his 50th cap last night.
I think it was last week. I think it was 51 last night. I'm pretty sure.
I thought it was his 50th cap, but it turned out it was last week. Yeah.
He's been an ever-present since he made his way into that Canada team. He's one of the first names on the team sheet alongside Alphonso Davis, Jonathan David as well. David. Yeah, and they've got those household names now that are playing every single time for Canada, and they seem very proud to represent Canada. It's not the biggest sport in Canada. There'll probably be ice hockey that's the biggest sport, and basketball too, but it's great that there's that spotlight on Canadian football now as well, and with the World Cup coming up in a couple of years that they've already qualified for, then that's a bigger spotlight, and it's great for them that they're doing so well.
They have that, what they now refer to in Canadian terms as they've got their golden generation of footballers, they believe. The same way they spoke about Belgium, but they're speaking about Canada in that kind of same vein as well, and all started by John Herdman, who drafted Ali Johnson initially, and I think John Herdman's now in the MLS, isn't he? He's coaching in the MLS, I believe. And but yeah, he kind of started that ball rolling because his was a great story, wasn't it? He was a former ladies coach that ended up taking the national team to great heights, and it's now gone on to supposedly bigger and better things. But it was him that kicked the ball rolling down that hill, and now they refer to this Canadian group of players as the golden generation, and they have did very well in the past couple of years, and they're on a kind of upward trajectory, and long may that continue because it reflects well on Alistair Johnson as well.
Are we keeping an eye on Canada's national team for any other players going? Because as you say, clearly a lot of talent being produced in that country, and probably kind of similarly to like Japan, for example, maybe not quite to the same level, but a bit of an untapped market as well, and the MLS as well is one I expect to see Celtic keep looking at. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, they were linked with Matthias Bogic. I know he isn't Canadian, but going for MLS talent, I had a wee look there. Herdman now currently manages Toronto, who are the most successful Canadian team in the MLS. They've got Vancouver Whitecaps as well in the MLS, but yeah, he's done a really good job. And Tony, you're completely right. He did do well with the women's team, the Canadian women's team, before moving to the men's team. So he's clearly a very good coach. I remember listening to him shortly before the 2022 World Cup, and he seems like a very good guy to work under as well, a very good coach, and it shows with the way that he's former team. He's sort of put the building blocks in play for Jesse Marsh to sort of perfect. And you just need to look at American football at the moment. American, soccer, football. You know what I mean? The US men's national team has Pochettino, and the Canadian national team has Jesse Marsh, two former Premier League managers. So they're really taking it seriously, and that can only be good for the sport as a whole. See, the boy that scored a double last night has been getting big licks. Jacob Schaffelberg, he scored two goals last night against Suriname. That's maybe a player to look out for. He came from Johnson's former team as well in Nashville, so that could be somebody to look at in the coming months and years.
Japan-wise, just looking there. So we had Kyogo getting 15 minutes at the end of the game. Dyson got 6 minutes. Rayo got 0 minutes. So at least they all got a little bit of game time. Japan beat China 3-1 yesterday. So a long trek back. I guess the three of them will be flying together though. So at least they've got three of them this time flying back to Glasgow. They're probably somewhere in the air as we speak.
Yeah. Three amigos, they'll be fine. In terms of,
would you play them on Saturday?
That's the $64,000 question, isn't it? But you would, well, if Hatate didn't get any minutes, did he? In that one there?
You got not in that one, he got a few minutes in the first one, I think.
So
10 minutes, something like that.
Relatively fresh, wouldn't he? But I mean, if they come back and they're fine, why would you not play them?
I'm trying to think, how were they in the Aberdeen game after the last break? Kyogo scored, didn't he? The Rayo scored
was really
as
good
well.
in the first half. He was really good.
Yeah. That was the first half that they were 2-0 up. They were terrific, weren't they? And then Aberdeen had the spell.
A wee bit quiet in that game.
Yeah, but then he threw the kitchen sink at them. Probably should have won. So that's not. Again, it's like everything else. They'll come home. They'll be assessed by the doctors, the medical staff, and the manager as well, and he'll make that call. But all being well, you would probably think that the three of them would start on Saturday, wouldn't they? Got to play a strong team. It's a tricky venue. You know, you have to go your strongest team, and you have to see how these guys are. But I'm assuming everything will be okay. You wouldn't not play them because they are functioning at the minute. All three players, aren't they?
I think the three of them are in our best team, aren't they, at the moment?
Yeah.
All three of them. I mean, they're three of our kind of when they're firing, they're three of our most important players. Certainly, Maida and Kyogo are in your team for every single big game, aren't they? Hatate would be as well, but you know, there's a bit more of a debate there with Engels and Bernardo, etc.
The thing is with Kyogo too, Ida is still injured as far as we know because he didn't make it to the Republic of Ireland camp, so we've not had any update. Yeah, I'd still be playing Kyogo at the weekend. The fact that he's been away with his national team means his tail will be up, despite the lack of game time that he had when he was away with his team. I'd be playing him. He'd be the first name on the team sheet for me against Hearts. I think he needs to get back on form. He's been quite critical in the media recently with his form and the fact that he needs to score more goals. I think it would just harm him if he wasn't to play against Hearts. For me, he'd be leading the line. I think all three of those players will play against Hearts, to be honest with you. It's not as if the flight home will be treacherous or anything. They'll probably have a private chartered flight back to Glasgow.
I've always wondered this. Will they? Because surely you wouldn't for three people. But will they be they'll be flying first class, won't they, or something like that? I've always wondered, but they'll just be commercial.
I'm really not sure.
I always wondered what international players do.
Yeah, well, here's hoping they get the best treatment. I'm sure they will. But yeah, I think Kyogo's got a terrific goal scoring records against Hearts anyway. Traditionally,
yeah.
So it's
certainly at Celtic Park he does.
Yeah. He used to score against them. So again, you know, not that would weigh heavily in your thinking, but you know, it's something else that brings into the equation. And if he wants to score more goals and he's hungry for more goals, then so be it. As I say, Ida at the minute, you know, I think Ida has to prove himself in terms of coming on and being that impactful sub regularly before he's ousting Kyogo at this minute. And I know the manager sometimes thinks, you know, Hearts are going to be physical on Saturday, aren't they? You know that. They're coming at you. And
they were at Celtic Park, weren't they, from memory?
So is it a game for Ida? Again, all these things come into your thinking. I mentioned on Monday about Bernardo. I think it's a game for Bernardo, I have to say. I just think that his time was coming. And this time last year, he sort of introduced himself to everybody and started doing wonderful things. So,
do you think he's like Santa, basically? This time of year, delivers and then heads off.
Going to be given his sack and told, right, produce the goods, go and do your thing, Bernardo. Yes, exactly. But and listen, I think the world of Bernardo's a footballer. technically, and he does the dirty stuff really well too. But I think he's a terrific footballer. And then it just becomes the dilemma: who do you leave out of your midfield? But that's what the manager gets paid the massive money for, isn't it? But we always do the predicted 11, so we always have a go at it as well. But I think he's certainly in the manager's thoughts for a start on Saturday. I think Paulo Bernardo.
I agree with that. I think he certainly be. I've just seen something absolutely shocking. I can't even read that out in case there's any young people watching. But you know what I'm talking about. Horrendous. Yeah, I mean Bernardo's always going to be in the manager's plans. I think he clearly is. I just wonder if when the big game comes around or the big games come around, whether Bernardo does start that often. I look at Saturday personally. I really like Bernardo, but I look at Saturday. McGregor, I want him in that midfield. I want Engels at a place like Tynecastle because I think Engels has incredible running power. I think he's got really good quality from set pieces, which is important. And I think he's just suited to games like Tynecastle. I think he's up with the pace and all of that stuff. And I want Hatate in there as well because I think that's the best balance in the midfield. Now, Bernardo's clearly going to get. He's going to feature at some stage on Saturday, and he'll feature against Club Brugge, etc. But I don't know if he's in my number one midfield for Saturday's game. If I'm honest, it's a great place to be when you've got those options.
It is. It's a great place, but it does slightly irk me that he's not starting more games. And I know that there's only 3 spots, and one of those spots is already taken by Callum McGregor. And more often than not, he's just had a 2-week break. He's going to play against Hearts. You would want him to play against Hearts away from home. In any other Celtic team over the past 10 years, I think he's a starter every single week, Paulo Bernardo. That's how good this midfield is at the moment. Now, I think it's a toss-up at the moment between Arne Engels and Paulo Bernardo because I think Engels has shown some good things. He's also shown, that he is 21 years old and he will have up and down games. Got no issues whatsoever, no worries about this player being a star for Celtic because he's got everything, absolutely everything that you need as a midfielder to succeed. I just think that, there's some games in which I think that Bernardo could have started and he's came off the bench and he's shown why he maybe should be starting. But I think that his international exploits will be not used against him, but maybe that'll be the reason why Engels, because he is at the forefront for Portuguese under-21 football. He's the captain. He plays most minutes there. And, even if he's getting that game time, I'm quite happy because it means that he's not sitting about doing nothing and he is getting that game time, that exposure, playing, scoring for his national side. I really rate him as a football player. I rate him as an individual as well off the park. I like the way that he conducts himself. I think and I don't know if it's controversial to say, I think he's got the most potential out of all the midfielders that Celtic have got at the moment. I think he's that good and I think he will be that good in a couple of years. I hope he's here for the long haul because he brings so much positivity to that midfield. He's got the graft in the midfield. He can score a goal. He's got the movement. He's defensively sound. He's good at passing. I just think the sky's the limit for a player like Bernardo, and I hope he bides his time because by the end of the season, I think he'll be a bona fide first pick for Celtic. He just needs to bide his time.
Interesting. What was the story yesterday? We had, I think, Luke McCowan was chatting to the media. I saw him chatting to Sky Sports. Tony, did you catch that? Was he saying anything interesting? He's quite an interesting guy, isn't he, Luke McCowan?
He's a cracking guy. They were appearing at Loaves and Fishes in East Kilbride, which is about 5 minutes away from where I stay. And they were doing their thing with raising money for part of the Celtic FC Foundation, and they donated stuff. But he's just loving life at the minute. He's just living his best life and enjoying being part of Celtic. And he knows fine well he's going to get game time as well over this frenetic period of games, which the manager has deemed the ultra marathon. So he's such a likeable guy, Luke McCowan, and he's another one that you think, he's going to get game time, isn't he? And Saturday's one of those games where he'll probably not start, but if he comes on, he's going to do something. He's going to get wired in. He's got a bit of dig about him. He's got something about him. He can score goals. He's got a bit of creativity, and he's got a good engine. And he's another one who will bide his time and will end up making inroads in that first team. It's a real embarrassment the riches that Celtic have in that middle of the park area, and along with that continue, it's just great. It keeps all of those players on their toes. Apart from McGregor, you would say nobody's a guaranteed starter in that midfield, even when everybody's fit. Is there? That's you're Perlman 2 from 3, and it's between what 5 players: Hatate, Engels, McCowan. Who else is there? Bernardo. So 2 from 4, and that's what you want, because the other 2 who don't play, you just say to them, you will be playing at some point, and when you come on, burst a gut and be ready. And so far, the manager's been able to keep everybody happy in that sense. That Bernardo and McCowan, when they come on, they've made that impact that you want, and I love that about them. I love that about the manager as well, that he is able to keep these guys happy, because he does stress to them and tell them that, you say that after the Kilmarnock game, I will need every player available to me in the squad. So that's a reassurance to everybody that over this period between now and March, you're going to play football. So don't despair if you're not in the team 1 week, because you'll be in it. You might be in it the next couple of days, because we've got so many games, and that's the benefit of having those squad numbers, isn't it? And that strength and depth.
But it does really feel like a squad effort this season. Like it doesn't feel, and I might be wrong here, but I can't remember any examples of any petulance from any player at any point having been taken off or being brought on and kind of going about in a strop and not wanting to impact the game because they're in the huff or whatever. I mean, and that's the kind of thing. I mean, like, I'm not being funny, but the first time Brendan Rodgers was at the club, you got that occasionally. And okay, I've only got Lee Griffiths in my mind at this point, fair enough. But I'm sure there were other examples of various players who maybe if they were brought off. I remember Lee Griffiths having a famous thing at Firhill in a game when we'd already won the league. I think we're 5-0 up and he was brought off. And I remember Rodgers having to deal with that, and he basically took Griffiths to the side after the game and had a conversation with him and calmed everything down. But also, I think, let him know that, that kind of behaviour wasn't acceptable. There's none of that in this squad at all. Like, at all. There's no players like that who, or certainly none that you can see that appear to have that mindset. Because I think if they do have that mindset, they're just nowhere near the squad anyway. If they don't have the right attitude, who was it Brendan Rodgers spoke about at the start of the season? It was Bosun Lawal, and was it Odin Holm? See the other one? Lawal leaves a few weeks later, and Holm's barely been seen since. And I think if you're not going to do everything, I mean, Thomas saying Hatate's like that, I think that's a bit harsh on Hatate. I think Hatate is really good in recent weeks.
The manager himself said it the other week. Most important player is the team.
Yeah, but they're all buying into it.
But I think he's drummed that into those players. That, as you say, and that's when I talk about elite levels, to be able to manage those situations, to manage that group and that squad of players. That's when he comes into his own, to keep them all happy, that nobody is running to newspapers or bleating to their agent. That's the,
or leaking the team.
Yeah, well, that's the managerial skill that Brendan Rodgers has to keep guys happy. There's a skill, it's an art for him, and you tell these guys that, listen, this is how it's going to be. You either buy into this or you don't. And I think, as you say, that's what you're seeing right now, that squad harmony. And they're all determined to make the most of the minutes they get on the park, whenever that is.
Do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I just think it's a good group, to be honest with you. And it helps that the manager speaks about them regularly, saying they're a great, honest bunch of lads that want to learn and they want to do better. They want to continually improve game on game. I like that. And I feel like it's a bad look for players if they respond like that as well. So I think they're covering themselves as well as helping the manager out by not making anything public. If they're annoyed about things, I like that they're keeping it in-house and maybe speaking to the manager from the side rather than making it public, because that then becomes a bigger side story, and there's been no side stories this season whatsoever, which has been brilliant. All the talk has been on the park and how good Celtic's performances have been, and the team performances. It's difficult to get in this first team, in this first 11. Ask the likes of Bernardo, ask McCowan, Adamida as well, Austin Trusty for a spell. Now it's Liam Scales that's in the back looking in. But that's good. I think they all appreciate that there's good competition in the team now, and it's bringing out the best in players. And they also know that if a player drops below the required standard, then they've got a chance to get into that team. So there's this healthy competition that's breeding and amongst the teammates, which can only be good for the team as a whole. Yeah, it's a really good position to be in for Celtic, and I hope that it continues like that, because if everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet, then it means that there'll be good results because of it and good performances to go along with it.
Even the perceived negativity of Dortmund, Hamish, it's been obliterated. It's been smashed aside. That could have lingered. It didn't.
Yeah, 100%.
Right, and that I talk about how they dealt with that. They go to Bergamo and they get a 0-0 with a defensive performance for the ages, where people look back and think, wow, they came of age. Guys like Trusty, guys like Scales, and you doubted that was in them after the mauling in Dortmund, because it was so different. Those two performances were at the opposite ends of the spectrum, but they dealt with it superbly. They I think everybody thought, oh, here we go, they're dishing out we'll learn from it. We'll go away, we'll learn from it. My goodness, they've learned from it. They've learned so much from it. And it's true what they say, sometimes in adversity you produce your best. They've dealt with that in-house, and they've answered that in the best way possible. There's been no lingering after effects of that. And to the point where we're now talking about that game could possibly become the aberration.
I know, it's mad.
Fixers. And it
could end up being the best thing that ever happened to us, as horrible as it was.
Correct. And flip that to the way you felt that night. You just thought that this was a different Brendan Rodgers team and they would never get caned like that again. And you thought, same old, same old. It's been totally, as I say, it's been totally knocked out of the park. And it's credit to that group of players, because Brendan Rodgers said that, as Ryan pointing out. He mentions the fact that they're honest, they're willing to learn, and they're a good squad of guys, and they are taking everything on board. So that's been one of the most impressive things of the season for me so far. Results apart, but the way they handled that and that negativity and ferocious criticism that came their way, and the way they've dealt with it, and it's been absolutely sensational, I've got to be honest.
I can't remember exactly where I heard it. It was one of the other Celtic podcasts, but someone made the point that maybe if we'd have lost 2-0 in Dortmund, for example, we then wouldn't have got the kind of performance we did against Atalanta. And maybe that we just needed that painful result to kind of learn at that level. But I agree. I think, that was a really bad night. I remember chatting to you guys the next day, and it felt like we'd lost every game so far in the season, when the reality was that was the first game we'd lost. But it was just such a horrible night. But as you say, the reaction since then has been fabulous. I know we've said this a lot. I just can't wait to see this team back in action. I think Saturday night is going to be a huge game. And then after that, you've got Club Brugge coming to Celtic Park next midweek. And that is just a fabulous game. That's a huge game. What an opportunity to go and win that and get to that promised land of 10 points and take it from there. Just huge opportunities for the team, and can't wait to see them back in action. We'll have the manager. Our press conference won't be till Friday, so we're still a wee bit off that. We might get a wee Celtic TV interview maybe today, because they tend to do that kind of thing during the break.
Potentially. That's if they don't do the press conference on Thursday. No, I know they've not done it this season so far. It's always been Friday, regardless if it's a Saturday game or a Sunday game. I'm not sure, but regardless, it'll be good to hear from Brendan Rodgers in any capacity, to hear how he's feeling about this big fixture list that's coming up. From November to March, it's going to be hectic, but you wouldn't want it any other way. And Hamish, I completely agree with you. With the Club Brugge game, it's going to be absolutely massive. That if Celtic could get to 10 points with 3 games remaining, what an incredible opportunity that is to get to at least the playoffs of the Champions League. You know, to have that knockout game to get into the last 16, and it would be a game that it would be against one of Celtic's adversaries in and around that group. Then you would fancy them in a 2-game tie, especially if there's a home game to come that they can do the business, because they've shown it this season already. They've beaten Bratislava, they've beaten RB Leipzig, and they've got the point away from home against Atalanta. There isn't that dread about Europe anymore, and that's quite weird to say, considering Celtic get beat 7-1 in this same competition this year, you know, only a few months ago. But it just goes to show you how uplifting those last 2 performances and results were for Celtic. The point in Bergamo, the 3 points against RB Leipzig and at Celtic Park in Glasgow. There just seems to be an uplifting mood now with regard to Europe and a non-fear factor. They want to play their own game in Europe. They're not going to change for anybody, especially at home. And I like to see that. I'm looking forward to that game already. That game can't come quick enough, in my opinion.
I think we'll hear from the manager and player on Thursday, because I believe it's the Celtic AGM on Friday, isn't it?
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
All right.
So I would put
I think you'll hear from the manager on Friday then, if that's the case, because he usually does them straight after, and he wears the suit. I remember there's always one press conference a year that the manager will be wearing a suit, and that'll be right after.
So there'll be some form of maybe the player tomorrow then. There'll be some, and then the manager probably will actually try and speak after the AGM, but I know certainly it's the AGM on Friday, so strap yourself in for a busy one. There'll be all sorts happening on Friday about various things. But yeah, listen, I just think it's so much to look forward to, isn't there? With Celtic starting Tynecastle on Saturday night under lights would be great. Then, as you see, you move into midweek and you've got a wonderful chance to, you know, hit 10 points. We spoke about it before. We said, how good would you feel about yourself if they could get to like 7 points? Now we're wanting 10. We're wanting 13 points. That kind of stuff from our next couple of games back-to-back at home. You're getting greedy on it because you feel that this team are capable of delivering. Right, Club Brugge will be no pushovers, but if Celtic can replicate anything like they did against RB Leipzig, you know, they'll make it, you know, as your manager said, they'll make it hell for Club Brugge on Wednesday night, and that's what you want. And if you wake up Thursday morning and you've got 10 points, you are dreaming of qualifying automatically. Not just going through the playoff round, you're dreaming of qualifying automatically. And that's the way we felt prior to RB Leipzig, and they produced something really special against RB Leipzig. And so this week coming up, amongst the other weeks that will follow, this is huge for Celtic in terms of domestic ambitions and Champions League ambitions. And again, I get back to it, it's where you want to be. Your excitement levels are just building and building. You're trying to keep a tin lid on it. And but sometimes you're just thinking, right, let's just wish it was Saturday to do battle with Hearts, and then hopefully get the result that you require, and then go into this stellar club competition and show again what you're made of and give you a performance that you're proud of.
What's the game the following midweek? Is it Aberdeen away after that? I mean, unbelievable. What a run.
Aye.
Yeah, it's a tremendous run. I just think with the European games, it's all about ticking these boxes. They had the tag of being favourites against Slovan Bratislava. They took that in their stride and they absolutely hammered them on the night, which was great. Yes, what happened at Dortmund was a disappointment, but I think they've learned a lot from that. They then went to Atalanta, where they had to show a more defensive and grittier performance, so you can tick that box. Then they displayed their sort of league form and their league football against a team like RB Leipzig and gave them a taste of their own medicine in terms of pressing and counter-pressing. It was beautiful to watch. Now, it's kind of like in the middle between Bratislava and RB Leipzig this game, where Brugge aren't as good a team as RB Leipzig, especially not individually, but they're a good team. There's a reason why they're in the Champions League. It's a more even game than you would probably say against Bratislava, in which Celtic were strong favourites to win that game, statistically the worst team in the Champions League, etc. So it's all about ticking these boxes. It's going to be a 50-50 game, or maybe a 60-40 in Celtic's favour at home against Club Brugge. But that should be something to be excited about, coming up against these teams. And Brugge will know all about Celtic, and will know that they've started they'll know that Celtic have started the campaign really, really well, apart from that result against Borussia Dortmund. So it's an exciting game. I know we've still got Hearts to think about before Club Brugge, but it's an exciting game to look forward to. And you would back Celtic to get the 3 points, even though it'll be a tough tie. They've really got to play on Brugge's uncertainties just now, because they're a team or a club very much in turmoil, with things going on off the pitch, owners not being happy with the way the team's playing. Celtic have got to use that to their advantage and really pile the pressure on them, and they can certainly do that, especially at Celtic Park, where it's a cauldron of noise.
Okay, that's the Champions League. We've got a league game before then, Hearts on Saturday night, and we can't wait for that one as well. That will do us for now, everyone. Thanks very much for your time once again, guys. If you're looking to support us in any way, we would really appreciate people subscribing to the YouTube channel at the moment. Costs absolutely nothing. Helps us to grow and find more Celtic fans, more people like you. Also gives you wee benefits like being able to set the wee notification so you know exactly when we go live. I know someone was moaning earlier. Maybe not moaning, sorry. Someone was saying earlier that they missed kickoff today. Which is one of the things you can solve if you're subscribed and click that wee alarm bell. Anything else to promote, guys, before we head?
Well, I've got a couple of pieces on the website if people want to check that out. Yesterday, I put a piece online about Celtic's new dynamic duo, which is Alistair Johnston and Nicholas Kuhn on the right wing. The two of them have linked up 3 times already in terms of goals and assists to goals for each other. So that's something that's... I thought there would be more, but they've been linking up with everybody.
Ross County away, was that one? Johnson for
Ross
Kuhn?
County away, Kilmarnock away. There was one more that you've put me on the spot ever so slightly. I'm going for it in my head because I know that Johnson scored against St Mirren away as well. So that was a goal in which Kuhn assisted Alistair Johnston. It's not just that; it's the way that they're playing with each other, and it's really working well at the moment on the right wing. And then today there's a piece on Alexandro Bernabe, the lesser spotted, who has been doing so well for Internacional in Brazil. So I look at some of his goals and assists. I don't think he's got a Celtic future per se, but it's good to see him do so well out on loan in Brazil. So much so that a Brazilian journalist was hoping that he'd get called up for Brazil, which was quite a wild comment considering he's Argentinian.
For Brazil?
Brazil he was. That probably says more about Brazil as well in their predicament at the moment, that they're looking for fullbacks when that was such a good position a couple of years ago for them. But he's doing well for Internacional. Hopefully he does that for the progression of his career and he can move on. But yeah, he's doing well for them. So hopefully he can continue to do that. And those are both available on the website.
It was like that time, remember David Pleat was wondering why Scotland hadn't called up Jackson Irvine, or Irvine, as he called him.
Yes, indeed. And I think I've written something about Bernardo, which will be going on tomorrow, Ryan, possibly. Is that right? Is that going on tomorrow?
I think so. I wasn't on yesterday, so I'll need to check and see. But I think that'll be on for tomorrow if it's set up for then.
I think it has been, yeah. So look out for that, guys. You can read Ryan's stuff, and then I think Bernardo piece will be on tomorrow, and we'll speak about Hearts all over again, no doubt, tomorrow, won't we?
We will do. We can get more into it because it'll be Thursday. Okay, thanks everyone. Appreciate it. We'll chat to you all very soon.